5 Mining Report Risks You Can't Ignore. In this video, we're going to cover reporting and governance risks that an investor or independent auditor needs to look out for when reviewing a mineral project. But don't click away just yet, because some of these red flags aren't where you'd expect them. Whether you're an investor trying to separate solid opportunities from shiny distractions, or a mining professional wanting to sharpen your due diligence radar, this video will help you see what's between the lines of a technical report. Stay tuned till the end because although this list isn't exhaustive, the last few points might just change the way you look at a project summary forever. But first, what are reporting and governance risks? Reporting and governance risks refer to potential problems or weaknesses in how a mining project's technical and financial information is prepared, reviewed, and disclosed, and how the project is managed or overseen from a compliance and ethical standpoint. Reporting risks arise when the data or interpretations presented in reports, like mineral resource estimates, feasibility studies, or competent persons' reports, are incomplete, misleading, overly optimistic, or not prepared according to recognized reporting codes. This can include poor data verification, selective disclosure of results, or unrealistic assumptions. Governance risks relate to how the project is managed and who is accountable for ensuring the information's accuracy and transparency. These risks include conflicts of interest, lack of independent review, or poor corporate oversight. Together, they can distort a project's true potential, so they must be understood. The one-man band, qualified person or competent person. This is where the entire technical report is authored by a single person, especially if they are also a company insider. This is a major red flag. Best practice involves multiple independent QPs for geology, mining, and processing. Lack of peer review, when there is no mention of the resource model or mine plan having been reviewed or validated by an independent third party. This is a major check and balance that is often skipped. Data verification gaps, when the competent person relies on data provided by the mine, even has a disclaimer to that effect. Red flag. One needs to look out for data verification, core relogging, assay rechecks, limitations that can call the entire database into question. Excessive use of inferred resources in investment-grade decisions is a big risk. Regulatory codes caution against using inferred resources in economic studies. They are the wild cards of mineral reports because they are just too speculative, uncertain, and require caution. But could still have potential. The apples to oranges comparison, comparing a project to other operations that are not true peers to make the project look more favorable. Now let's dig deeper to explain why. The one-man band. A project can be considered risky if the technical report is authored by only one competent person for several important reasons. The first reason is limited expertise coverage. Mining projects involve multiple disciplines like geology, resource estimation, metallurgy, geotechnical, mining engineering, environmental, and economics. No single person, no matter how qualified, can be an expert in all of these. Therefore, a single author means some technical areas may not have been independently reviewed or fully understood. The second reason is a lack of peer review and therefore limited quality control. When several competent persons contribute, each section gets reviewed and validated by peers, reducing human error or bias. If only one competent person signs off, there's no internal cross-checking, increasing the risk of misinterpretation of data, overlooked inconsistencies, and unchallenged assumptions in the estimation or classification. The third reason is the potential for bias or conflict of interest, particularly if the CP is contracted by the company and working alone. There's a risk, even if unintended, of optimistic bias, especially if project continuation or payment depends on a positive outcome. Yes, this is real life, it can happen. Multiple authors or reviewers act as a check and balance system against such bias. The fourth reason is weakness in code compliance. But before we tackle this risk, let's explain in brief. What is code compliance and why is it necessary? Mineral resource and/or reserve estimates are reported according to internationally recognized standards, like JORC, Australasia, NI 43-101, Canada, or SAMREC, South Africa. These codes set out the rules for how geological data, assumptions, and results should be collected, verified, and disclosed to ensure that what's being reported is transparent, reliable, and based on reasonable evidence. It's necessary because mining projects often attract investors and strategic partners who rely on these reports to make major financial decisions. Without code compliance, there's a higher risk of misleading or inconsistent information, inflated expectations, or even fraud. In short, code compliance protects both investors and companies. It ensures that the numbers, interpretations, and classifications behind a project can stand up to scrutiny, and that everyone is speaking the same technical language when evaluating risk and value. Now back to tackling the risk of weakness in code compliance. Reporting codes encourage that competent persons only sign off on sections within their field of expertise. A single author claiming responsibility for geology, estimation, and mining studies may raise red flags about whether each component truly meets the reporting standards' intent of competence and accountability. A technical report authored by a single competent person increases technical, compliance, and bias risk, and reduces credibility. Investors and due diligence teams should always ask: which disciplines were reviewed and by whom? It is strongly recommended that investors engage an independent third-party reviewer to evaluate any competent person's report, CPR, before making investment decisions. An independent review provides an objective assessment of the data, interpretations, and assumptions used in the report, helping to identify potential gaps, overly optimistic assumptions, or technical weaknesses that may not be apparent to non-specialists. This extra layer of scrutiny ensures that investors are basing their decisions on verified, unbiased information, reducing the risk of financial loss due to overlooked geological, metallurgical, or economic uncertainties. Data verification gaps. When a competent person relies entirely on data provided by the mine without independent verification, there is an inherent risk to the reliability of the resource model. The CP's confidence is based on the assumption that the mine's data collection, logging, and assay practices were accurate, consistent, and complete. However, if the mine took shortcuts, used inconsistent procedures, or made errors in sampling or recording, these issues could propagate directly into the resource estimates. This reliance increases uncertainty in reported tonnage, grade, and metal content, potentially leading to overstated resources or reserves, flawed economic assessments, and misguided investment decisions. Essentially, without independent verification, the credibility of the entire dataset cannot be assured, exposing investors and stakeholders to technical, financial, and regulatory risk. Under the JORC code, for example, a competent person, CP, must review, and where reasonably possible, independently verify the data used for resource or reserve estimates, and apply appropriate estimation methods. They must transparently report all assumptions, limitations, and risks, including any reliance on third-party or mine-provided data, and take professional responsibility for their sign-off. Inferred resources, speculative but intriguing. The preliminary economic assessment, PEA, relies heavily on inferred resources, which are the lowest confidence category of mineral resources and carry significant uncertainty in tonnage, grade, and continuity. While PEAs are allowed to include inferred resources for conceptual economic evaluation, regulatory codes caution that these resources are too speculative to support definitive investment decisions. As a result, any PEA dependent on inferred resources should be viewed as highly preliminary, and its conclusions about project economics are indicative only, not guaranteed. Due to the uncertainty attached to the inferred mineral resources, they are suitable for early-stage assessment only, and all reports must clearly state their speculative nature, being clear that it cannot be assumed that all or part of an inferred mineral resource will necessarily be upgrades to an indicated or measured mineral resource after continued exploration. Apples to oranges. Presenting a low-grade, bulk tonnage deposit alongside a high-grade, underground operation can be misleading, because the scale, mining methods, costs, and economic dynamics are fundamentally different. Such comparisons can overstate a project's potential or make its economics look better than they realistically are, and investors need to be aware that true peer benchmarking requires selecting projects with similar geology, grade, mining method, and scale. When comparing mining operations, it's critical to recognize that not all deposits, even within the same region, are truly comparable. The Witwatersrand gold mines in South Africa illustrate this well. Although they are part of the same overall basin, individual operations may exploit entirely different reefs, each with unique grades, widths, and metallurgical characteristics. Some mines target narrow, high-grade reefs using conventional narrow stoping, while others work lower-grade, wider zones using mechanist or bulk mining methods. These variations affect dilution, recovery, mining costs, and ultimately, project economics. Comparing such operations as if they were identical can lead to misleading conclusions about a project's potential profitability or scalability. So there you have it, 5 reporting risks you simply can't afford to ignore if you're serious about understanding what's really behind those shiny project summaries. Remember, what's written in a report is only half the story. The real value lies in knowing what isn't said. If you found this breakdown helpful, or if you've just realized how many red flags can hide in plain sight, hit that like button, subscribe, and join me for more straight-talking insights on mining, geology, and resource reporting. Because in this industry, curiosity isn't just smart, it's profitable.